The Krillian swarm had been consuming the galaxy for 12 years. They came from the dark space between spiral arms, a species of silicon-based organisms that fed on rare earth elements and organic matter with equal appetite. They didn't conquer worlds, they devoured them, leaving nothing but stripped husks of rock floating in the void. Entire civilizations vanished in months, their histories erased, their peoples converted to biomass. The Intergalactic Council had formed in desperation. 23 species, some ancient enemies, had joined together in an alliance that would have been impossible under any other circumstances. But when facing extinction, old grudges meant nothing. Ambassador Varix of the Solothian Collective stood in the council chamber aboard the massive space station Harmony's End, a name that felt increasingly prophetic. Around him, holographic representatives from across the galaxy argued with the exhaustion of those who had been losing a war for far too long. The Krillian forward swarms have breached the Tertian barrier, announced General Corvos, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. We estimate 4 weeks before they reach the core worlds, maybe 5 if we sacrifice the outer colonies. A murmur of despair rippled through the chamber. The Tertian barrier had been thought impregnable, a natural phenomenon of gravitational anomalies that should have slowed the swarm for months. 4 weeks meant billions more would die. "What of the human petition?" asked Chancellor Yaris, her melodious voice strained with fatigue. "Have they responded?" All eyes turned to Varix. He had been Earth's primary diplomatic contact for the past 8 years, ever since humanity had first made themselves known to the galactic community. In that time, he had learned to read human expressions, to understand their peculiar customs, but he had never truly understood their philosophy. "They have," Varix said slowly. "The answer is the same as always. Humanity will not interfere in what they call non-terrestrial conflicts. They maintain their policy of isolationism." "Cowards," spat General Corvos. "They sit behind their defensive perimeter while the galaxy burns." "Perhaps not cowards," Varix countered, though he felt little conviction in his words. "Their policy has been consistent since first contact. They claim to have learned hard lessons about intervention in their own history." "Their history is irrelevant." Corvos's form blazed brighter. "We need their technology, their resources, their fleets. The intelligence reports suggest they have capabilities far beyond what they've revealed." This was true, and it haunted Varix. During his visits to Earth, he had seen glimpses of technology that defied understanding. Ships that seemed to bend space itself. Defensive systems that operated on principles the Council's best scientists couldn't explain. Energy signatures that suggested power generation methods decades or centuries beyond current galactic standards. But humanity kept these secrets locked away, sharing only basic technologies for peaceful purposes, medical advances, agricultural improvements, environmental restoration techniques. Nothing military, nothing that could be weaponized. "They claim they are prepared to defend their own territory," Varix continued, "but they will not project force beyond their borders. It is a matter of principle for them." "Principle," Chancellor Yaris said bitterly. "How noble. I wonder if they will maintain their principles when the swarm reaches their borders and finds Earth as appetizing as every other world." The meeting dissolved into further arguments, accusations, and desperate planning. Varix remained silent, his mind troubled. He had spent years studying humanity, and something didn't align. They were not a cowardly species. Their entertainment and historical records showed a people capable of tremendous bravery and self-sacrifice. They were not isolationist by nature. Their early history was filled with exploration and expansion. So why did they hide behind their walls while the galaxy died? 3 days later, Varix received an encrypted message on a private channel. It was from Dr. Sarah Chen, a human xenoanthropologist he had befriended during his time on Earth. The message was brief. "I cannot speak officially, but you should know, we are not what we appear to be. When the time comes, you will understand. I'm sorry it has to be this way." Before Varix could respond, the connection terminated. He stared at the blank screen, Dr. Chen's words echoing in his mind. When the time comes. What time? How many more had to die before that mysterious time arrived? The answer came 6 days later. Prometheus 7 was a human research station on the edge of human-controlled space. It housed 300 scientists and support staff studying exotic particle phenomena near a collapsed neutron star. It was civilian, unarmed, and had been operating for 7 years without incident. The Krillian Vanguard found it on a Tuesday. The attack was not strategic. The Krillians didn't think in those terms. They simply consumed everything in their path, and Prometheus 7 happened to be there. The station's distress signal reached Earth within seconds, but by the time any response could be mounted, it was already over. 300 human lives snuffed out in minutes. Varix learned about it through Council intelligence channels. The Krillians had crossed into human space for the first time. By all their established patterns, they would interpret this as a new feeding ground and continue forward. Earth and its colonies would face the same fate as hundreds of other worlds. "Now they will fight," General Corvus said with grim satisfaction when the news broke. "Now they have no choice." But days passed and there was no response from humanity. Their borders remained sealed. Their fleet stayed in defensive positions. The Council sent urgent messages offering alliance, coordination, combined operations. All went unanswered. "They're going to run," General Corvus said. "They're going to abandon their outer colonies and retreat to their core systems." Varix didn't believe it. He had seen something in the humans during his time among them, a deep, almost frightening capacity for controlled violence. They were not pacifists. They were something else, something waiting. 12 days after the destruction of Prometheus 7, Varix received a formal communication from Earth's diplomatic corps. It was not an answer to the Council's pleas for alliance. It was something else entirely. The United Terran government acknowledges the unprovoked attack on Prometheus 7 and the loss of 300 civilian lives. After careful deliberation, the UTC has determined that humanity's policy of non-intervention is no longer viable. Effective immediately, Earth and all human territories are in a state of war with the Krillian swarm. We will be dispatching military assets to address this threat. No assistance from Council forces is required or requested. That was all. No grand declarations, no emotional appeals, no requests for coordination. Just a simple, cold statement of fact.
"Finally," Corvus said. "But they're fools if they think they can face the swarm alone. They'll need every ship we can spare." Varix wasn't so sure. There was something in the tone of that message, something in the careful phrasing. No assistance required or requested, as if humanity didn't need help, as if they had been waiting for this moment. "How many ships are they sending?" Chancellor Yaris asked. Varix checked the data attached to the message. According to this, 12 vessels. Silence filled the chamber. 12? Corvus finally said. 12 ships against a swarm that has consumed thousands of worlds? Have they lost their minds? "Perhaps it's a scouting force," suggested Chancellor Yaris, "an initial probe before committing their main fleet." But Varix remembered Dr. Chen's message. "When the time comes, you will understand." He pulled up everything the Council knew about human military capability, which was surprisingly little. Humanity had been meticulously careful about what they revealed. Their defensive perimeter was impenetrable to Council scouts. Their military exercises were conducted in systems with no observers.
Their shipyards were hidden behind sensor jamming technology that made observation impossible. The Council knew humanity had ships, but they didn't know how many, what class, what capabilities. It had always seemed like paranoia, like humanity was afraid of being attacked by Council species. But now, Varix wondered if there was another explanation. What if humanity hadn't been hiding out of fear? What if they had been hiding something else? "We should monitor their engagement," Varix said. "We need to understand what they're capable of." "I'll have our forces in the outer reaches relay tactical data," Corvas agreed. "When the humans fail, we'll need to be ready to support their retreat." But something told Varix there would be no retreat. Something told him the galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Something told him that humanity's silence, their isolation, their refusal to help, it had all been leading to this moment. The Krillian swarm had made a terrible mistake when they attacked Prometheus 7. They assumed humanity was like every other species in the galaxy, fragmented, unprepared, vulnerable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In Earth's orbital command center, Admiral James Kowalski stood before a three-dimensional tactical display showing the Krillian swarm's advance. Around him, his command staff worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for what was to come. "The fleet is ready, Admiral," reported Captain Maria Santos. "All 12 vessels report full operational status." "Good." Kowalski's voice was calm, almost detached. "Execute Operation Nightfall. Show them what we've been building for the last 200 years." "Yes, sir. Engaging quantum slip drives in 3, 2, 1. On screens across the galaxy, on every Council monitoring station, the same impossible thing happened. 12 human vessels appeared exactly where they needed to be, having crossed distances that should have taken weeks in mere seconds. The battle of the Void Nexus was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Void Nexus was a graveyard of ships. For 3 months, the Council forces had been trying to hold this strategic choke point, a region of space where gravitational anomalies created natural corridors through otherwise impassable stellar debris. Control the Nexus, and you controlled access to 17 inhabited systems containing 40 billion souls. The Krillian swarm had been hammering at the Council's defenses for weeks. Thousands of their bioships, living vessels grown rather than built, had crashed against the defensive lines in wave after wave. The Council had lost 200 ships holding this position. Now, only 73 remained, and they were losing. General Corvas commanded the defense from his flagship, the Eternal Vigil. His crystalline body pulsed with exhaustion as he reviewed the tactical situation. 3 more hours, maybe 4, and they would have to retreat. Another defeat, another 17 systems lost. Then, the sensors lit up with impossible readings. "General," his tactical officer's voice cracked with confusion. "I'm detecting 12 vessels emerging from, I don't know what to call it. They're just appearing at coordinates Delta 77. Corvas pulled up the sensor data. 12 ships, appearing exactly where the Krillian main swarm was concentrated. No jump signatures, no hyperspace rifts, no wormhole traces. They were simply there, as if reality decided they should exist in that location. "Configuration analysis?" Corvas demanded. "Unknown class, unknown design. Energy signatures are off the scale. I've never seen power generation like this. They're reading as, wait, this can't be right. Each vessel is outputting more energy than our entire fleet combined." The human ships were elegant in a way that defied military aesthetics. They looked organic, almost alive, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow. They were massive, each one dwarfing the Council's largest battleships, but they moved with impossible grace. "Transmission incoming," reported the communications officer. "It's on all frequencies, directed at both us and the Krillians." "Put it through." A human face appeared on the main screen. Male, middle-aged, with dark skin and calm, intelligent eyes. He wore a uniform of deep blue with silver accents. Behind him, Corvus could see a bridge that looked more like an art installation than a military command center. Flowing lines, holographic displays that responded to gesture and thought, technology that seemed decades beyond anything the Council possessed. This is Admiral James Kowalski of the United Terran Fleet, commanding the 1st Expeditionary Group. To Council forces, hold your position and observe. To the Krillian swarm, you have consumed your last world. Surrender is not an option. Retreat is not possible. You end here. The transmission cut off. Did he just... He never finished the sentence. The human ships moved. They didn't accelerate in any conventional sense. One moment they were hovering at the edge of the Krillian formation. The next they were inside it, dancing between bioships with movements that violated every law of inertia. They left trails of distorted space-time in their wake, reality itself bending around them. The Krillians responded instantly. The swarm operated on collective consciousness. When one unit perceived a threat, all units responded. 10,000 bioships turned as one, launching biological projectiles, energy weapons grown from living tissue, and clouds of corrosive spores that could eat through any known hull material. Nothing touched the human vessels. The attacks passed through empty space where the ships had been microseconds before. The humans moved in patterns that made no tactical sense. They should have collided with each other a dozen times, should have been caught in crossfire, should have been overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Instead, they were untouchable. Then they began to fire. The weapons weren't like anything in the Council's arsenal. Beams of pure white light lanced out from the human ships, and wherever they touched, Krillian bioships simply unraveled. The organic matter decomposed in seconds, breaking down to constituent atoms that dispersed into space like dust in the wind. "What kind of weapon is that?" Corvus whispered. His science officer was frantically analyzing the data. "It's not a weapon in a traditional sense. It's entropy manipulation. They're accelerating the breakdown of molecular bonds, but in a controlled, directed manner. The amount of energy and precision required it shouldn't be possible." One of the human ships released what looked like silver spheres, hundreds of them, each no larger than a fighter craft. The spheres spread through the Krillian formation like seeds in the wind, and then they activated. Space folded. Corvus watched in awe as localized gravitational fields appeared around each sphere, creating dozens of miniature singularities. Krillian bioships were pulled into these gravity wells, crushed to the size of marbles, and then released as expanding clouds of superheated plasma. In 3 minutes, the humans destroyed 5,000 Krillian vessels. The swarm tried to adapt. They always did. It was their greatest strength. Bioships began generating counter-frequencies to the entropy beams, growing armor that could resist the gravitational weapons, clustering together to protect their collective mass. The humans shifted tactics without hesitation. One of the larger vessels, Corvus would later learn it was the Prometheus Risen, named in honor of the destroyed station, deployed a new weapons system. A pulse of energy rippled outward, passing through both Council and Krillian ships without effect. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Krillian bioships began to die. Not violently, not dramatically, they simply stopped functioning. Their organic systems shut down as if someone had flipped a switch. Thousands of vessels went dark, drifting lifeless through space. "What did they do?" Corvus demanded. "I'm reading neural disruption. No, it's more sophisticated than that. They've somehow interrupted the quantum entanglement that allows the swarm to maintain collective consciousness. Each bioship is brain-dead, cut off from the hive mind." The implications were staggering. The Council had been fighting the Krillians for 12 years and never found a way to disrupt their collective consciousness. The humans had done it in seconds. But the swarm was vast. 10,000 ships might seem like a massive force, but it was only a fraction of their total strength. Reinforcements were already arriving, another wave of 30,000 bioships emerging from deeper in Krillian-controlled space. The humans regrouped, forming a defensive sphere around the largest vessel, the flagship Terra Invicta. Admiral Kowalski's voice came through on the Council's frequency again. "General Corvus, you may want to shield your sensors. This is going to be bright."
"What are you—"
The Terra Invicta began to glow. At first, it was barely perceptible, a soft luminescence around the hull. Then it grew brighter and brighter until Horvath had to dim his visual sensors. The energy readings were impossible. The flagship was outputting more power than a small star. "They're charging a quantum slip resonance weapon," his science officer reported, voice trembling. "The amount of energy they're channeling, if they lose containment, they'll vaporize everything within a light year, including us." "Should we retreat?" asked his tactical officer. Horvath looked at the human ships, at their perfect formations, at the confidence in their movements. "No, if they wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. Watch. Learn." The Terra Invicta released its payload. It wasn't a beam or a missile or anything kinetic. It was a wave of altered space-time itself, expanding outward in a perfect sphere at faster than light speeds. When it touched the incoming Krillian reinforcements, they simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but erased, as if they had never been. 30,000 bioships, gone in an instant. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Krillian presence in the Void Nexus had been completely eliminated. Not defeated, eliminated. The humans had proven they could destroy the swarm faster than it could reinforce or adopt. Admiral Kowalski's face appeared on Horvath's screen again. "General, the Void Nexus is secure. We're moving to the next concentration of Krillian forces. I recommend you pull back and regroup. The war will be over within 72 hours. 72 hours? Horvath couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Admiral, the swarm controls a third of the galaxy. They have forces numbered in the millions. How can you possibly—" "With respect, General, you've been fighting them with conventional warfare. We're not going to make that mistake. We've been studying the swarm for 12 years, analyzing every battle, every tactic, every biological sample we could acquire. We know how they think, how they breed, how they spread. More importantly, we know where they come from." Horvath felt his crystalline structure go cold. "You know where their home system is?" "We've known for 8 years. We've been watching it, learning everything about it. Now we're going to end this the only way it can truly end. We're going to the source." The transmission ended and the 12 human ships vanished again, slipping through space toward their next target. In the Krillian home system, something ancient stirred. The Hive Queen was old beyond measure, a creature the size of a moon. Her consciousness spread across 1 billion drones and 10,000 bioships. She had been consuming worlds for 3,000 years, had destroyed civilizations before the Council species had even discovered fire. She felt the disturbances in the swarm mind. Ships dying faster than they could be replaced. Entire swarms going silent. For the first time in millennia, the Hive Queen felt something she had forgotten existed: fear. Then she felt them arrive. 12 ships appearing in her home system without warning. 12 tiny specks against her vast domain. She sent everything she had against them. 100,000 bioships grown over centuries, representing the accumulated power of her entire civilization. The humans destroyed them in 43 minutes. Then they turned their attention to her. The Hive Queen tried to flee, tried to burrow deeper into her moon-sized body, tried to hide in the quantum frequencies where her consciousness truly lived. But the humans had brought something with them, a device that made her ancient mind scream in terror. It was a quantum cage, technology that could trap consciousness itself. As it activated, the Hive Queen felt her connection to the swarm being severed, felt her billions of drones fall silent, felt her power drain away like water through cupped hands. Admiral Kowalski's voice echoed through the system on all frequencies. Hive Queen of the Krillian swarm, your war is over. Your drones are being put into stasis. Your bioships are being decommissioned. You yourself will be contained, studied, and eventually transferred to a containment facility where you will live out the rest of your considerable lifespan. But you will never again threaten another world. This is not negotiable. This is mercy, though you would not recognize it as such. The Hive Queen raged silently in her quantum prison, but she was powerless. In 3 days, the humans had accomplished what the Council could not achieve in 12 years. They had ended the swarm. When Ambassador Verix received the report, he sat in silence for a long time, reading the tactical analysis over and over. The humans had lost 0 ships, 0 casualties. They had fought a war of extinction and emerged without a single death. Dr. Chen's message appeared on his screen. Now you understand why we waited. We needed to be certain. Certain we could win without becoming monsters ourselves. Certain we could end it quickly, decisively, without years of grinding attrition. We're sorry we let so many die, but if we had revealed ourselves too early, if we had fought before we were ready, the galaxy would have faced an even longer war. Sometimes mercy means waiting for the moment when you can truly make a difference. Verix thought about the 12 human ships dancing through impossible space, about weapons that erased matter and trapped consciousness itself, about a species that had watched the galaxy burn while perfecting the tools to extinguish the fire. And he wondered what other secrets humanity kept hidden in their corner of space. The council chamber aboard Harmony's End had never been so full. Every species, every faction, every splinter government that had survived the 12-year war had sent representatives. They came to witness history, to see the species that had saved them, to understand what humanity truly was. The chamber, designed to hold 200 beings comfortably, now hosted over 500, with thousands more watching via holographic relay across the galaxy. Ambassador Verix stood near the central platform, his diplomatic robes immaculate despite his inner turmoil. In 3 days, everything he thought he knew about the galactic order had been shattered. The humans hadn't just won, they demonstrated technological superiority so absolute that it rendered every other military force in the galaxy obsolete. The question everyone was asking, what would humanity do with that power? Admiral James Kowalski entered the chamber with a small delegation. No guards, no military escort, no display of force. Just 5 humans in simple uniforms walking calmly through a crowd that parted before them like water. Verix noticed how the various species reacted, some with gratitude, some with awe, and some with barely concealed fear. Kowalski reached the central platform and stood quietly, waiting for the chamber to settle. He was not an imposing figure physically, average height, weathered features, the tired eyes of someone who had seen too much. But when he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. Members of the Intergalactic Council, representatives of the free peoples of this galaxy, I am Admiral James Kowalski of the United Terran Government. I have been authorized to speak on behalf of humanity regarding the events of the past 72 hours and our intentions moving forward. Chancellor Yaris, who had coordinated the meeting, gestured gracefully. Admiral, we are grateful for your presence and for what your people have done. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be fully repaid. We did not act for debt or gratitude. We acted because it was necessary, because we finally had the moral justification our laws required, and because we had reached the point where we could be certain of victory.
General Corvas, still recovering from what he had witnessed at the Void Nexus, leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, you could have ended this war years ago. Why did you wait? How many billions died while you perfected your weapons? The chamber went silent. It was the question everyone wanted to ask, but few had the courage to voice.